We don't have to review every single thing you've learned every time we come back to the ukulele, but I'm going to run through a bunch of it again today in the same manner that you would do when you're practicing. The first thing to make sure you're always doing is learning the names of your strings. So again, we have Good Children Eat Apples, G, C, E, A, going backwards, A, E, C, and G. We've learned how to put all the notes on those in the key of C. So we've got the open C, 2nd fret D, we move higher to the open E, 1st fret F, 3rd fret G, move higher to the A, A's come after G's in music, and B is 2nd fret, C is 3rd. That's a C major scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. When you practice, make sure you're memorizing C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Then come backwards, C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. Listen for the do, re, mi sound there. We've looked at how to tab that before. I'm not going to review that right now, but that's the tab for what I've just played here. C is the 3rd string open, represented by the O on the 3rd string. When you see all the notes of the key of C, you'll recognize that sometimes notes are 2 frets apart, like F to G, that's an obvious one, or they're 1 fret apart, B to C. The 1 fret move is a half a step. A 2 fret move from F to G, for instance, is a whole step. You'll see there's a whole step from C to D. You can't tell obviously, but D to the open E is a whole step. E to F is a half. We're going from open to 1, whole step to G. Again, you can't really tell, but G to A is a whole step. Obviously a whole step to B, there's a fret in between them, and C is right beside B's. They're a half step away. So we get C, whole step, half, whole step, whole step, half. That's how you define a major scale. In C we have no sharps or flats, so just doing the natural notes, which means no sharps or flats, from C to C will give you whole, half, whole, half, which is a major scale. Regardless of what note we start on, if we do that pattern, whole, half, whole, half, such as if I start on a D, you'll get a major scale for that note, or if I start on an E. In each case, that's a major scale adhering to this pattern, whole, half, whole, half. When I do that, I'm changing the notes. If I start on a D and I've moved those whole steps and half steps over, I'm going to alter the notes I have. I'm going to need an F sharp and a C sharp. That's for another day. Then we also could review all our chords. You've been practicing them in order: C, C7, F, G7, A minor, D major, A, etc., picking them up in a certain order. After a while, we realized that we would have 3 major chords in each case that go together. C, F, and G, for instance. C, F, G, or I could put a G7 for the G. The relationship of those chords is that if we're on C, in the key of C, C is the first chord. It's the 1 chord. It's major. If I count up 4 notes to the F, I'll get a major chord for F, and on the 5th note, the G, I can get a major chord. Anything else, a chord built on D would be minor, on E it would be minor, on A it's a relative minor, and on B it's a diminished chord. So the 3 major chords occupy the spaces 1, 4, and 5. They're the major chords, or they're the primary chords. Every key has 3 major chords, the primary chords. So C, C, D, E, F is 4, G or G7 is 5, back to C. So you practice those in any order: C to G, C to F, C to G7 to F to G to C. After a while, we learned that we could do a key of G. So G becomes our 1 chord, C is the 4, G, A, B, C, and D is the 5, so we need a D major. So we could go G, C, D major, G, or G, C, D7, G. There's our D7 there. So the 5th chord could be a G or a G7, a D or a D7. The name for that chord with the 7 on it is actually dominant 7, so it's G dominant 7 I'm talking about, or D dominant 7. Now I can go to the key of D and do a 1, 4, 5, D, G, A, and D, or D, G, A7, and D. So here we have our A and our A7. A has a finger on the first fret of the third string and the second fret of the fourth string. In A7, you remove this middle finger. That leaves the open G string. An A chord with a G note is an A7. If you count, A, B, C, D, E, F, G is the 7th note. That's what makes it an A7 chord. So D to G to A, or D to G to A7 is the 1, 4, 5 in D. Practice those back and forth in any direction. If you like, you can play those 3 chords and you're playing Bad Moon Rising. D, A, G, and D. There's your D, D, A, G, D, D, A, G, D, D, A, G, and so on. You can check my guitar videos for Bad Moon Rising to play along with that song. Or we'll probably cover it another day in ukulele, but that's just a nice use of the D chord. D, G, and A, 1, 4, 5, so I can use the A, the 5th, for my next key. D, which was the 1 in the previous key, becomes the 4, so we're going to have A's and D's, and E's. I'm not showing you the E yet, it's easier to learn in E7. Although whether or not that's easy is a relative term, as it's getting a little more complex. So we've got A's and D's, E7s and A's. A, D, A, E7, A. One nice way to practice the E7 is once you've mastered your A chord, these 2 fingers on the 3rd and 4th strings will switch positions with each other. The pointer comes to the 4th string, the middle finger to the 3rd, and then you add a ring finger on the 1st string B note. So the A switches around to E7. So you have a 2, an open 2nd string, a 2, and a 1 for E7, landing you on A. Every time we learn a 1, 4, and 5, just play those chords together. You can play blues with them, you can play all manner of songs. A, D, E, D, A. Once you've got all those, you can just randomize them, but the best way to practice them is in their keys. So practice a 1, 4, 5 in each key. Move into the next key. You can borrow chords from one key to the other. We'll have systems for doing that later on. And you can also throw in the minor chords that you know. We've got D minors and A minors so far. They would both go in the key of C if you wanted. C, F, A minor, D minor, G7, and C. The A minor could come into the key of G. G, C, A minor, D, G. When you want to use these chords, of course, what we want to do is put them in songs. Any of your songs that have just a 1 and a 5, like He's Got the Whole World in His Hands, Tulsa Time, Down in the Valley, etc., you could use to practice your A. He's got the whole world. In A, you could go, he's got the whole world in his hands, E7, whole world in his hands, A, whole world in his hands, E7, whole world in his hands, or any of them. Anything that you played a C and a G7 for, or F and C7 for, you can now substitute A and E7 for practice. That should do it for now. Have fun with that. See you later.